We're going to do another section of one-step equations. This time it'll be fractions, so go ahead and label your paper. Please make sure you also label it with the standard 7.ee.4. Okay, so this time we're going to be solving with fractions, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this as c minus 3/4 equals 7/8. And again, I'm going to circle my variable. Go ahead and bring down my wall with my equal sign. And remember that I'm going to look and notice that there is a subtraction sign right next to the variable. So I know I'm going to always do the inverse of that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to add, because the inverse of subtract is to add. So I'm going to add 3/4 to both sides. And I know that negative 3/4 plus positive 3/4 cancels out, and I'm left with c by itself. And then I'm going to come on to the right-hand side, and I'm going to notice that I can't just add these because they don't have common denominators. So I need to come up with a common denominator, and I notice that 8 is going to be my common denominator, so I'm going to go ahead and write it here and here, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it down in my answer. I don't have to do anything to the 8 in this one, so that means I'm not going to do anything to the 7, so I'm going to go ahead and bring 7 straight down. I do, however, on this side have to multiply the 4 by 2 to get 8, so I'm going to multiply the 3 by 2, so 3 times 2 is 6. And remember, whatever you do to the bottom down here, you have to do to the top. All right, and then I'm going to bring my plus sign down. And I know that 7 plus 6 is going to give me 13. Now that is not my final answer because I know that that's an improper fraction. So I know that 8 will go into 13 one whole time. And then I have 5/8 left over. And I'm going to go ahead and circle my answer. The next problem, if you notice, you have mixed numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the mixed numbers as I rewrite my problem. So I have a plus, and I know that 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5/3, which is equal to negative 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11, so negative 11/3. And then I'm going to go ahead and start my problem like I normally do. So the first thing is I'm going to circle my variable, and remember that's what I'm trying to get by itself. Bring down my wall with my equal sign. And the first thing says to add 5/3. Well, I know that I'm going to do the inverse operation, and the inverse of adding is subtracting, so I'm going to subtract 5/3 on both sides. And I know that 5/3 minus 5/3 cancels out and leaves me with a. And then if you notice over here, I wrote the minus 5/3 right next to the negative 11/3. Anytime I subtract, I always like to write it right next to it because it's easier to look at. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the keep, change, change. So I'm going to keep the first number, change this subtraction to addition, and change the positive 5/3 to a negative 5/3. And then if you notice, I have same signs. So remember, if you sing the song, same signs, add and keep. So I'm going to add the 11 plus 5, which gives me 16. And they're both negative, so I'm going to keep the sign. And I know that it's negative 16/3. And I also know that I'm going to go ahead and bring my negative down here. 3 goes into 16 5 times, and I have 1/3 left. I'm going to go ahead and box that in. So my final answer is negative 5 1/3. The last example looks a little different because the mixed number is in front and then comes the variable, but we're going to do it the exact same way. But again, before I get started, I'm going to go ahead and change both these mixed numbers into improper fractions. So I'm going to say 3 times 1 plus 2 is going to give me 5/3 plus x, which equals 6 times 2 plus 1, 13/6. And then I can get started on my normal circle the variable. So I'm going to go ahead and circle the variable. And go ahead and bring down my wall with my equal sign. And I notice that there is I'm adding 5/3. Now I'm not adding 5/3 because of this plus sign. I'm adding 5/3 because this 5/3 is a positive. And remember, you can always assume that it's positive unless there is a negative sign. So I'm going to, since it says to add, I'm going to subtract 5/3 on both sides. Again, I'm writing it right next to it because it's subtraction and it's easier in my brain to write it next to it. I know that 5/3 minus 5/3 cancels out and leaves me with x. And then when I come over to the right-hand side, remember, I notice that I have to have common denominators. Notice that there's a 6 and a 3. Well, my common denominator is going to be 6, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite 6 here and here. Bring down my minus sign. And I also know that my denominator, my answer, is going to be a 6. So I didn't have to do anything to the 6, so I'm going to go ahead and bring the 13 straight down. And then on this one, I had to multiply 3 times 2, so I'm going to multiply the 5 times 2, which gives me 10. And then I can actually get started subtracting. I know 13 minus 10 is going to leave me with 3. And that is not simplified because 3/6 is equivalent to 1/2. So x is equal to 1/2. Here are a few for you to try. Remember that you have to have common denominators and that you need to change your mixed numbers into improper fractions. Good luck, and please write down any questions that you have that you need to bring to class tomorrow.